Everybody talks about motivation. We see it on Instagram, we see it on TikTok, we see it on YouTube. The popular quotes, the speeches, that all gets tossed around from time to time. But nobody talks about what happens when that motivation actually disappears. And it always disappears. And that's the truth that nobody wants to hear because it's not sexy and it's definitely not easy, but it's absolutely real. So that's why I'm gonna be breaking down the 10 chapters for the motivation and the discipline to understand the difference and why one is what you need and one is really just a crutch. Chapter 1, the myth of motivation. Think of motivation kind of like caffeine, right? It's gonna give you like a quick jolt, then you end up crashing. Whenever you have those monsters, those sugary energy drinks, you drink it, you get a quick jolt, and then you just crash. That's kind of like how motivation is. But discipline, on the other hand, that's the engine that kind of keeps you going when the music just randomly stops. Understand that motivation is really just temporary energy. It's a spark, it's not fire at all. Sometimes motivation feels amazing, but sometimes it's really unreliable for most of us. It's gonna be mood-based, it's gonna be really emotional. You might have like one good song that you might listen to, like one hype up video from a motivational speaker that you love all the time. Maybe it's me, maybe it's David Goggins, maybe it's all these popular guys in the past. And then the next few moments to like an hour or so, maybe a day, you feel invincible, like you're ready to take on the world. But then what happens when the music stops and then you stop watching us or you stop watching them? What happens when you're sore, you're tired, you're stressed, you're bored? You can't rely on all that hype for progress. I used to do it myself growing up. So that's really why motivation is just like a spark, and discipline has to be your borderline system. People don't tell you this, but motivation also fades usually when that song ends. So that dopamine hit, basically the chemical messenger in your brain that plays a huge role in like motivation and drive, reward and pleasure, focus, attention, mood regulation, that usually spikes the most when you're pursuing something, not when you actually get it though. So like when you're most excited during a vacation, but you're not there yet, like the chase of getting somebody or trying to get somebody to date you, maybe scrolling through all these social media platforms, but then also eventually burns you out. The dopamine high from everything around us is very real, and it gets really high, and then it gets also short-lived. None of us can sustain those dopamine spikes for a long term because once it crashes, you feel like shit and you feel completely empty inside, unless you're really anchored to some type of long-term goal or like habit that you're trying to get to. That's why usually chasing those high leads just will end up to you burning out in the end, which is why it's important to have some type of behavior-based identity change, not just like those feel-good moments where it's like you want to do it when you feel good, because that's not how we do things. You're going to end up building a lot of tolerance, and all that drive, you're going to end up losing quick. Think about it like this. If you're relying on motivation, you're building basically on sand, and eventually it's going to collapse unless you use a lot of water. But one of those days, the ocean's just going to run right through it either way. People chase motivation like it's a drug. It becomes really addictive, especially when we're scrolling, when we're swiping, when we're stimulated by all these different things. Every video will get louder. Maybe your Netflix series will get more trauma-based, more dramatic. Maybe your quote might be even more dramatic, and still nothing really changes for you. That's like a lot of people like to use false action. So watching motivation kind of feels like progress for you, but it's really not. The only thing that's really going to build momentum for yourself is actually doing it in the movement itself. Action, even just small, tiny things that you do in your daily day, is really what's going to create that habit. Remember, all that motivation that you hear from your friends, your family, people around you, it's all talk. That discipline is what keeps you walking though. Understand that real change comes from doing what's required, not what's actually convenient for you. And that's where some of the greatest people are really made. So reps when you're tired, even when you feel invisible, because everybody feels like that at one point in their life. Remember, all those real wins comes from you stacking up those boring wins every single day. And eventually it just leads to a huge tower instead of you just building like a small little apartment complex for yourself. It becomes more, especially as you get older, less about being inspired, more about being kind of like inevitable. Chapter 2, the delivery of discipline, right? So motivation is loud, but discipline is very, very silent. It's really built when no one's clapping for you and no one's looking and you're just clapping for yourself. But that's the most important thing to know. And that discipline will start to come in when your motivation will start to end. Motivation will get you started, as I said before, like that spark. And when it fades, as it always does, the only thing that's left is really your discipline. And that's what happens. That's how you get discipline. It's really not a feeling. It just becomes a choice for you. And it becomes stronger, and it becomes a really good tool, especially when your emotions start checking out and you don't even want to do the things you want to do, or you're really upset, you're really tired, you're really exhausted, you're really burnt out. That's the key to your discipline. And all that long-term physical progress is rooted in consistency. It's not rooted really in hype. As far as like a more scientific literature perspective, once that dopamine fades from all that motivation that you get, the brain must rely usually on the prefrontal cortex activation. So deliberate decision making to push yourself through all that comfort. Basically, you're telling yourself, just to go anyway. Go anyway, go in the snow, go in the rain. It doesn't matter how the weather is. It doesn't matter how you feel. It matters that you do it and not just waste your day and waste your time, more importantly. Usually discipline is kind of like your response when your feelings clock out. Discipline, it's built in silence. With discipline, you guys, no one's really cheering you, especially when you're meal prepping maybe at like 10 p.m. at night or 7 o'clock in the morning, and it's taking you hours to make the chicken, the sweet potatoes, the rice, and now you have to cook it, and now you have to clean it, and altogether that meal prep took you about 3-4 hours. Nobody's really there for you. And then when you wake up at like 6 a.m., nobody's filming you when you say no to distractions, or maybe you want to get up and start your morning run at like 5-6 in the morning. Nobody's filming you. Nobody's recording you. But these small compound moments, that's where your real progress is really going to live, and live for the rest of your life. Just the behavior compounding effect and the habits you built in the shadows are what create the person, and then eventually the world sees it. And then eventually in neuroscience, it's always been told that repeated silence effort always hardwires your identity. Discipline isn't always out there. It's not, you're not going to see it physically. It usually just grows in the dark, maybe your darkest times, and then it shines when it actually matters the most. It's going to work when you're exhausted. So everybody loves the grind when you're fully rested, you feel full, you just woke up, you got like maybe 8 to 10 hours of sleep. But what matters really is when you kind of do it when you're sleep deprived, when you're stressed, you're doubting everything, but you still end up pushing yourself. That's your discipline. That's not the motivation. That's your discipline. It's not really about hustle culture. It's not about like folding because the conditions around you aren't perfect. Maybe you don't have the perfect job, the perfect lifestyle, the perfect food around you, the perfect gym equipment, the perfect family. It's just kind of really about doing it. Even like the elite lifters or athletes you see, they train while they're tired. They don't train because they just feel like it. They train at all moments. And then eventually they adapt to the intensity, but they don't abandon the plan. And that's where a lot of people get that misconception wrong. You have to push through that fatigue, and pushing through that fatigue, you're gonna end up building a lot more physical strength and mental strength. Discipline, it's finishing when basically your body wants to quit, because we all know we've been there. You know, back in the day where they used to fight all the time and you just have one man standing. And, or it could be you at the gym, and then you're benching and you're used to benching 10 reps at a specific body weight, and you're used to benching 10 reps at 135, but do you stop at 8 or do you finish at 10 when your muscles actually fatigue and start to get tired? That one decision just to finish stronger, it's gonna really take a toll and really reflect your identity, and it's just gonna echo it out to the world. You know, you end up teaching your brain like you don't wanna negotiate with the effort, you don't wanna negotiate with just being kind of normal and just getting what feels easy for you, because it's never really worth it in the end. And in those specific moments, you prove to yourself that you are the change, not your fatigue, not your excuses. You just keep doing it no matter what. As far as studying goes, think about it like this. It's studying, it's grinding, it's showing up, all without the applause from anybody, because you don't need validation when your vision is clear and you know what you want out of this life. Discipline also doesn't chase likes. We don't chase compliments above them all, because the only really applause that matters is the quiet one from your own integrity and your own morals and your own ethics, knowing that you're doing something that you enjoy, that you love doing, and that you know you did the work even when you didn't want to. That should be enough for you, and that should be enough for anybody. I'm telling you right now, if you do it for the crowd and only for the crowd, you're gonna quit when they're gone. But if you do it for yourself, you are never gonna stop. It's gonna go on for days, weeks, months, and for years on end. So a quick example, there was a time when I used to wake up at like 4 or 5 in the morning before, and I didn't want to go to the gym. I didn't have a choice because I had school. I was working like 2 to 3 jobs at the time. But there was one day where I was cold, I was tired. There were some days where I also felt like crap. I felt sick. I didn't have any motivation. But then I remembered, if I do quit on myself today, I'm just going to be tempted to do it tomorrow, the next day, and even weeks ahead. And I realized I can actually push myself. I'm like, this isn't motivation anymore. This is discipline kicking in for me. So it's really important that you just do it anyway. Chapter 3. Your motivation is a lie. A lot of us have been sold a myth where it's like you need to feel good to take the action. And that's the reason why really most people stay stuck, because they don't take that action. That motivation is gonna make you think that you need to feel good to act, which is completely the wrong way. A lot of us wait for like the perfect moment or for the stars to align before they actually take a step towards their progress and to their goals in their life. Think about it like this. You wake up in the morning and you don't wait to feel like brushing your teeth. It just becomes a task you do every single day because you're used to it. That's what discipline discipline is, and it's no different. You don't wait to be excited to do something. You show up because it matters to you. That's the difference between all the amateurs and the professionals when they separate the motivation and their discipline. One waits for the permission, they're seeking for it, and the other one just ends up creating all the momentum without it because they know they don't need it. Misconception destroys consistency. If you wait to feel ready, I'm telling you right now, that's how you're gonna lose a lot of momentum in your life. If you wait to feel inspired by others, it's good to have the muse, but if you just wait to feel inspired by somebody else, you're gonna waste a lot of years. And you're gonna start hearing a lot of people in your current state or in the future say, I wish I could have done this, or I wish I could have done that. I wish I changed my lifestyle. I wish I didn't date that person. I wish I took on a different job. I wish I followed my business. You're gonna hear that a lot. And the reason why most people fall off, it's not because really they're lazy. It's because they think something's kind of wrong with them when like their motivation starts to run out on them. But that motivation isn't meant to last. It's really just a quick emotional increase or emotional surge. It's not a built-in system for yourself to use. So think of discipline as like brushing your soul, right? Discipline, it's not mechanical. It's more spiritual, if anything. You have to do uncomfortable things, like really uncomfortable things that make you proud after. We're not talking about some weird things. We're talking about things that align with you, your soul, and your goals. Maybe you want to wake up early. Maybe you want to study when you're tired, creating when no one else cares or nobody else gives a damn. You know, it's kind of like hygiene. You keep your body clean, you brush your teeth, you shower. It's just the basics of what you know and what you already are used to. Discipline is going to keep your life clean. It removes all that mental junk from you, the doubt, the regret, the resentment, because you'll never feel like that. You will feel like that, but you know how to surpass that. And a lot of us have been trained to wait until we are inspired, which is really the opposite of what we should be doing. You know, if we kind of see how like we've all been raised and how we were conditioned growing up, we only move when there's like a dope ass quote, when there's like a really good hype video, like those old school maybe bodybuilders, nothing against them, or like the David Goggins videos, nothing against them either. But a lot of us used to move or utilize our motivation because of that. I did it myself. And then we only act when the energy just feels right at that specific moment. That's probably one of the biggest lies of modern culture. A lot of that teaches us to consume the inspiration first instead of just creating our own action and actually doing it. And then every scroll, every video kind of convinces you like you're not ready yet, unless you feel like it or unless you find it. But when you take action, it does not require your permission. It only requires a decision. It's either you do it or you don't do it. And that's really the most important thing. I think one of the biggest scams really isn't failure in life. This is one of my top scams. It's really just to feel perfect before you begin to do something, but most of us don't feel perfect anyway. I don't think any moment is really perfect. The energy might hit certain times. The message might land in your head and might feel like gold to you, which is why you still have to do the work when the moment's gone, because it's not always gonna be there. It's not gonna stick with you forever. Even the best ideas in your head, they mean nothing if they stay stuck in your head. Some of the most greatest people in this world, Albert Einstein, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Benjamin Franklin, they all had these specific ideas in their head, but if they didn't rely it out to the public, a lot of us probably wouldn't be where we are today. So dreaming is really one of the most passive things you could do, because if you don't do anything or you don't pursue it, it's useless. Remember, your future self doesn't care about how you feel today. It just only cares about what you actually did for yourself in that moment. Chapter 4, discipline equals self-respect, because it does. Every act of discipline is really just a form of self-respect, and I don't think a lot of us understand that. The positive internal sense of your own worth, your own dignity as a human being, this is literally what self-respect means. The self-respect is not about external achievements or validations by anybody. It's the internal sense of self and how you actually want to choose to live your life, and you're living it to your fullest potential. You know why? Because you're telling your brain, my goals matter to me more than my mood at any specific moment. And that's where the discipline comes in too, because it's going to keep those promises to yourself and make them last. And most people will break them on a daily because they're too busy, they don't feel like they're worthy enough, they feel like they're getting distracted, and they just end up losing faith. And then people will fall for this trap and they'll stay there. Think about it like this. You don't really respect somebody that lies to you on a consistent basis. I know I don't. Even if it's a close family member or friend, you still feel some type of like way or resentment to them, especially if they're doing it to you all the time. It's not even just like once in a blue moon. So why would your mind respect you, right? If you keep breaking your own word to yourself. Hopefully that just hits you even harder. Chapter 5. the aloneness of discipline. Discipline will isolate the hell out of you, especially the better you become at it. Your habits are gonna make a shit ton of people uncomfortable, but that's okay because you're doing this for you at the end of the day. You're gonna end up skipping the parties anytime you're invited to any type of outing. So we're talking about like weddings, events, baby showers, bachelor parties, birthdays. You might skip it because you might not agree with the event, or it might be the people that you don't wanna be surrounded by because they're either drinking, they're smoking, their morals, their ethics, their beliefs don't align with you and yours. Maybe sometimes you'll say no to ultra processed food, majority of the time. Maybe you might wake up to start your day with hope and charisma. People are always gonna judge you at the end of the day. And then some popular words they'll use, especially when you stay really disciplined to your goal and stay faithful to you, is if you're not partying all the time, they're gonna say you're boring. If you really focus on what you love doing, they're gonna say you're obsessed. If you try to look good all the time or watch your weight, they're gonna think you're too strict because you're eating according to how you wanna eat. And if you stay home all the time and wanna be in your own energy, in your own positive field, they're gonna think you're a weirdo. But I'll tell you what, when everything starts to show up and the results of your hard work starts to come in, because they will come in, they're gonna ask you how you did it. It could be a good feeling to know that you got validated in a sense. It can also be a bad feeling because you got validated by other people. But what really matters is to know your own self-worth and know that you're just as important. And everything you say is very powerful. There's a popular quote, "The road to discipline is paved with lonely nights, early mornings, and uncomfortable truths." But this is true to a certain extent. Lonely is kind of like a harsh word to use. It would really be a compliment to be by yourself and know how powerful you are in your own energy. Chapter 6, building discipline. So we could do step-by-step protocols to help you build discipline. So we could start small. So maybe you wake up in the morning and you want to do 10 push-ups to get the blood flowing, to get the exercise going. Maybe you want to read 10 pages before you go to bed, because that's awesome, to one of your favorite authors, one of your favorite books that maybe give you some type of muse. Complete one task in the morning, which is pretty favorable because doing something small like making your bed in the morning would probably be something externally easy for most people to do and create the habit starting during that day. Remember that the consistency always beats the intensity. So sometimes we don't always feel like it, but as long as you're doing it, even if it's not to your best potential, still will always win. And then the best choice is really not to rely on the willpower. Maybe you want to schedule it once in a while. So have a routine that's scheduled on a consistent basis. It's going to be your next best option. And then you must attach to the identity. So saying something like, "I am a disciplined person" every single day helps you immensely. There was a powerful statement that actually came from a creator that I saw not too long ago. So close your eyes. Now imagine at that table, there's a lemon in front of you. You slice it in half. Now take that sliced half of lemon and squeeze it into your mouth. Wait a few seconds. Squeeze it into your mouth again. Now open your eyes. If you imagine having that extremely sour taste in your mind, that's the power of your subconscious. You don't know what's actual reality and what's not reality. So if you can think it, it will most likely come true. Next, it's really important to remove all distractions, especially as you become more disciplined, because friction is going to destroy that discipline. Any people that you feel like are not giving you that joy and that happiness and make you feel ill or discomfort, any foods, any type of hobbies you have, maybe biting your nails, going out to drink every single night, smoking, remove them. And then you can always track it visibly. So use a calendar, use a journal, use a dream journal. One of the best ways I found that is really try to keep a regular routine, if I'm being honest, and kind of stick with that. So fasting, maybe you want to do it for your brain health, not for fitness. Silence, maybe you want to stay in silence for a few moments to a few hours each day. That becomes more important for yourself, especially as you start developing more. Think of discipline as kind of like a muscle. So you can train it and it will start to develop to become bigger, stronger, and more resilient as time goes by and as more people come around you. Chapter 7, discipline affects the mind. How does it do this? Okay, so you're gonna build a lot more mental clarity. You're gonna have confidence. You're gonna have a lot more inner peace. You stop needing approval from others, because one of the biggest things you could really do when you're 100% confident in yourself, this is hands down the truth, you don't need validation like you needed it before. And then you're gonna stop relying on mood swings and learn the lesson of really what's going on around you. And at that point, you become really dangerous as shit, laser focused, and whatever task you wanna complete, you'll end up completing without a doubt. Too many people also start with a good intention when they start creating some type of discipline. They want structure, they want purpose, they want the routine, but slowly, without realizing it, they start over-identifying with their grind, right? No longer someone who just works out, they are the workout. They don't just eat healthy, they are the diet. And the second they break that identity, it becomes a little crazy, because then they end up spiraling. And that's kind of what we call a disgrace cycle. Think about it like this: you miss one day, you miss then 2 days, you miss 3 days, then you just feel like shit and you feel like a failure. When it really shouldn't be like that, because that discipline is going to end up turning you into like some type of self-punishment which you don't deserve, instead of seeing all those like setbacks as feedbacks, you kind of start treating them as proof that you're not good enough, which really isn't the case. Real discipline allows for enough recovery. Remember, burning out doesn't make you a hero, especially at the end of the day. It's gonna really make you ineffective. There has to be some type of balance when you have some type of discipline. If what you're doing is draining you without fulfillment, you have to question it. Ask yourself, is this discipline making me better, or is it making me more bitter in your life? Chapter 9, discipline in every zone. Let's talk about the different ways we can implement discipline, right? Meal prepping when you're tired. I'm not gonna use training when you're sore. So fitness, for example. Training while you're slightly sore is fine, but when you're dragging out through every session without recovering properly, you're not being disciplined. You're kind of just one, being stupid, and then two, you're just kind of ignoring your body signals. So in which case, that true discipline means knowing that when to push yourself and then when to come back and pull yourself back. Not every session that we do needs to be a grind and needs to push ourselves like 100%, because that's not really how it works. You need to be able to recover in time for the next one. Even meal prepping. So after a long day, it might not be exciting for you to make the chicken, the rice, the sweet potatoes, dope salads, the Greek parfaits, the eggs, the scrambled eggs in the morning. But that meal prepping is really the difference between reacting and just being prepared at that moment. You have to choose your future health over the temporary convenience of not being disciplined. So when you do like these small, like thankless actions, the prepping, the meal planning, the adjusting, that's real discipline when it comes to fitness. How about relationships? So discipline isn't just keeping your word with relationships, right? It's controlling your tone when you're angry, being able to speak to each other, having good communication skills, because that's important, having patience to listen when you rather kind of just walk away, especially after long fights, long arguments, because nobody wants to deal with that. It's responding calmly when your ego wants to win the argument, or maybe you did win, but now your ego is telling yourself, let's hype it up, let's push it a little more. That's when you kind of have to take a chill pill. Being kind even when you're right takes more strength than just proving a point. So sometimes even when you know you're right, or right at that moment, or maybe you're always right, it takes a lot more willpower, a lot more discipline to stop yourself and just know that it's not worth it. It's not about dominance, it's just more so presence and being able to communicate effectively and efficiently. Business, let's talk about it like this. So you show up when the coworkers, let's say, take a sick day, right? Because we know our coworkers, some of our coworkers can be lazy, or some of them can be really hardworking. Maybe you're on social media and you have a business and now you're posting. Maybe your post likes are low, and now you just want to stop. Maybe you're a business and you sell products, but nobody's buying it. But understand that discipline doesn't give you those immediate results, right? It's about showing up regardless of the response you get from these business expenditures or exposures. And that's how you really build the momentum. It's not an explosion of success. It's quiet, invincible effort that you need every single day. Waiting for that motivation is what amateurs do, and you'll see that around you a lot. But all the professionals, all the people in the highest career paths and the highest standards, the CEOs and everybody like that, they work with or without an applause. It really doesn't matter to them. The hardest part, I'm telling you right now, is it's not doing the work. It's doing the work without validation from others. Let's talk about the mind and how it affects your mind. Everybody talks about discipline, as I am doing it right now, physical discipline, but almost nobody talks about the mental discipline. So sitting with your thoughts, your own thoughts when your phone is buzzing and you don't want to pick it up, that's discipline. We're not talking about picking up for emergencies. We're talking about just random buzzing from your friends, your family, because they just want to see what you're up to. Maybe journaling instead of scrolling all day on these platforms. That's discipline, right? And then you're taking 5 minutes to unplug. Your ability to control your attention, to protect your energy, protect your peace, to pause and reflect. Those are really the hidden secret gems of your life that are going to amplify over your lifespan. There's a really popular quote too. It says that if you can't control your mind, your discipline is borrowed. And that's absolutely true because it's not owned. Discipline is not going to start in the gym, or it's not going to end at your desk in your 9 to 5. It's how you speak, it's how you're going to move, and how you're going to create when nobody's watching you, because you don't need that validation from anybody. You just need to do it. Because how you do anything becomes how you do everything. Last chapter, chapter 10. The freedom. So most people think discipline is restrictive, which is really nonsensical, because real discipline, it's just the path to your freedom and the biggest path to your freedom. So you're gonna get the illusion of restriction is for the first thing, right? So people fear discipline because it feels like them saying no to everything that's like positive in their lifestyle or what they think is positive. So saying no to the junk food, no to the parties, no to the sleeping in. But saying no, you gotta think about it like this, saying no to the wrong things kind of lets you say yes to the right ones when they pop up. One of the most misunderstood truths in this world is understand that freedom without structure is going to lead to you and your lifestyle being chaotic. Because when all those cravings hit, the distractions, the people, the places start to pull you around, they keep pulling you around, and they try to pull you around, you are not free at all. You're just easily manipulated by everybody around you, and that's disgraceful to say the least. You do not know the power of yourself, and you are not free. You're just a slave to their comfort and your own comfort. So discipline's going to buy. What is discipline going to buy? You say it's going to buy everything priceless. It's going to buy time, right? So when you're disciplined with your schedule, your day stops owning you. You actually own it instead. So you know what you're going to do. You know what you're going to plan out during that day. You know when you're going to eat. You know when you're going to work out. You know when you're going to leave your job, when you're going to spend time with your friends, your family, your kids. That's very important. You're going to get a lot of peace from this. When you keep your word to yourself, your mind stops spinning with guilt and anxiety, because we all have that, especially right before we go to bed, which is why a lot of us take magnesium or ashwagandha, or some of you guys smoke. But that peace that you get, right, when you keep the word to yourself, means everything. Everything else is meaningless. You need that peace because you know that everything you tell yourself and you keep your word means so much more. How is health affected by discipline? Everything. When you train and eat clean on a consistent basis, right? We all know this. This is important. You're going to move with confidence. You're going to look better. You're going to feel better. And you're just going to have a lot more energy and drive to take on the day and just keep taking on every single day, no matter what. The wealth you're going to get. So when you show up for your craft daily, right? Even when no one's watching, you're going to build a lot more value over time. And that value is going to lead to you making more money doing something you love and enjoy. And that's the best feeling in the world. And then the purpose, which is actually going to tie into the wealth. When you stop chasing the dopamine and start aligning with the deeper values inside your soul, you become grounded. You don't become reactive to everything else around you. And that becomes really, really apparent, especially as you age. And to know that really, if you look around you, and to find peaceful people around you is really hard, number one. But to find them, you'll realize that the most peaceful people in this world are usually the most disciplined ones. If you're thinking a monk as the first answer, I'm thinking the same thing, but those are really the most peaceful people. You can't be free if you're really a slave to the laziness, those cravings and distractions. Because every time you crave those distractions, you cave into them, you're gonna weaken your ability to focus on long-term and all your goals that you actually wanna get out of this life. And when you're tired, you're unmotivated, you're scrolling endlessly on these apps. I do it too sometimes, but it's also my business. It's not because you're broken, it's because you train yourself to be a passenger of your own driver's seat in your own car. And you're driving right now a 2000 hoopty with over 100K miles on it, and the brakes are barely working. So now you're scared to death for your life. That discipline is the decision to take the wheel again. So you need to take the wheel of your hoopty and take control of your life, because one tiny choice at a time is really gonna make a huge difference. Let's talk about the architect of your future. It's not gonna be glamorous with discipline, right? It's not gonna be flashy all the time, but it's how everything real in your life is gonna get built. So every book, every business you pick up, the movement you make over time is really gonna make a huge impact, right? And a lot of the best bodies, a lot of the best books, a lot of the best businesses were really built by people who chose discipline over dopamine. And that's a secret no one really tells you. I don't know why people don't say this. People should say it more often. And while everybody else is binging, scrolling, and complaining, because a lot of us do that, and it's probably only gonna get worse, the disciplined ones are quietly creating the next version of themselves daily, because they're thinking about the present moment and what to do now, because that's gonna affect their future. Because at the end of the day, the freedom that you think is free isn't free, and it's not found, it's earned. The world around you is built by disciplined people, and that's exactly why you need to be one of them.